In a remote village shrouded in an eternal chilling fog, an eerie legend has persisted for generations. Every night, without fail, a solitary candle flickers to life within the decaying walls of an abandoned house perched precariously on a desolate hill. Villagers whisper that this is no ordinary flame. It is a beacon for the damned, a prison for souls trapped between worlds. They speak of a malevolent presence, a dark entity that haunts the fog-drenched lanes and feeds on the very essence of human despair. They call it the Soul Eater, this tale of supernatural dread, a story that parents used to frighten their children into obedience, was exactly the kind of mystery that Lena, a sharp-witted and relentlessly curious journalist, found irresistible. Driven by a thirst for the truth behind folklore, she packed her bags, her camera, and her skepticism and journeyed to the isolated settlement. Determined to uncover the reality behind the legend of the Soul Eater, she believed every ghost story had a rational explanation, a human origin lost to time and embellished by fear. This time, however, she was about to discover that some legends are rooted in a truth more terrifying than any fiction. From the moment Lena's car sputtered into the village square, a palpable sense of unease settled over her like the thick, gray mist that clung to everything. The air was heavy, silent, and cold, carrying a faint, metallic scent she couldn't quite place. The villagers, when she could find them, were reticent and fearful, their eyes darting nervously towards the silhouette of the abandoned house on the hill whenever she mentioned its name. Her presence was clearly an unwelcome disruption. As she began her investigation, the strangeness escalated, bleeding from the villagers' hushed warnings into her own reality. The first night, as she reviewed her notes in the small, musty room of the local inn, she heard a soft, insidious whisper that seemed to come from all directions at once, breathing her name, Lena. She dismissed it as the wind, a trick of a tired mind, but the phenomena grew more audacious. Shadowy figures flickered at the edge of her vision, disappearing the moment she turned to look. Her reflection in mirrors would sometimes lag a fraction of a second behind her movements, its expression momentarily twisting into a silent, mocking grin. The whispers became more frequent, no longer just her name, but fragmented pleas and warnings that slithered into her thoughts. Her investigation led her to the village archives, a dusty, neglected room in the back of the town hall. It was there, tucked away in a rotted wooden chest, that she found it, an old leather-bound diary. The pages were brittle, the ink faded, but the words scrawled within were terrifyingly clear. It belonged to a man named Elias, the last resident of the abandoned house, who had lived over a century ago. Elias wrote not of a ghost, but a tangible creature, a shadow that hungers, a being that had been drawn to the village's profound sorrow after a devastating plague. He described the Soul Eater as an entity that didn't just haunt but hunted, feeding on the fear and grief of the living until it had consumed their very souls. His final entries were a frantic, desperate warning to anyone who might follow. "It knows you are here," one passage read, the handwriting jagged and panicked. "It sees your curiosity as an invitation. It wears the faces of the lost and speaks with the voices of your deepest fears. Do not listen, do not look. To acknowledge it is to give it power. It hunts those who seek it." As Lena read those words, a chilling realization washed over her. She was not just investigating a story. She was being stalked. The voice in her head was no longer a mere whisper. It had sharpened into a distinct, articulate presence, a cold and calculating intelligence that echoed Elias's warnings. It was the Soul Eater, and it was watching her, studying her, learning her. It began to probe her mind, dredging up forgotten anxieties and painful memories, using them to taunt her. It spoke with the voice of her estranged father, criticizing her choices. It whispered with the voice of a childhood friend lost to tragedy, blaming her for not being there. The entity was a master of psychological torment, and its influence was relentless, chipping away at her resolve, her sanity. The boundary between the real world and the creature's nightmarish influence began to dissolve completely. The shadows in her room writhed and coalesced into figures from her past, their eyes hollow, their mouths agape in silent screams. The face in the mirror was no longer her own. It was a gaunt, skeletal visage with burning, empty sockets, the face of the Soul Eater itself, staring back at her with an expression of triumphant hunger. It was inviting her, daring her to face it, to come to the place where it was strongest, the abandoned house. Knowing she was walking into a trap, but seeing no other way to end the torment, Lena finally confronted her fear. Under the pale light of a slivered moon, she pushed open the creaking door of the house on the hill. The air inside was impossibly cold, thick with the smell of decay and something else, the metallic scent of pure, undiluted fear. The single candle, just as the legend described, burned with a steady, unnatural flame in the center of the main room. As she stepped towards it, the floorboards, the walls, the very fabric of the house dissolved around her. She was no longer in a derelict building, but adrift in a timeless, lightless void. The air vibrated with a cacophony of torment, the desperate cries, agonized sobs, and terrified screams of countless lost souls, a chorus of eternal suffering. From the depths of that oppressive darkness, a figure emerged. It was a towering, amorphous silhouette of pure shadow, constantly shifting with no definite shape, yet radiating an ancient and overwhelming power. 2 points of malevolent crimson light ignited within its form. Fixing on her the eyes of the Soul Eater, it spoke. Its voice the culmination of every whisper she had heard, the sound of 1,000 stolen voices speaking as one, a chilling symphony of despair. It told her she was brave, that her soul was vibrant with curiosity and defiance, and that it would be the most exquisite meal it had tasted in a century. Lena stood her ground, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs, as the abyss echoed with the cries of the lost and the monster that had consumed them prepared to claim another soul.